Alright, what's up, folks? I decided to record this. Also, if you hear squeaking, it's the exercise ball I'm on. I swear I'm not farting. So, I decided to record this because I wasn't sure when I would actually be able to present it to everyone. So, just to make it easier, here we are with teen dramas. So, I'm going to give you a general outline. These are the shows that I watched in order of when I watched them. We're going to go through each show individually, and then we will see how they all connect at the end. So there's Pretty Little Liars, Nancy Drew, The Vampire Diaries, Gossip Girl, The OC, and Riverdale. I have not finished Riverdale. I don't believe that anyone ever has. One Tree Hill was not included because it was so boring that I just stopped watching it. And also, at the end, there's a little bit about Teen Wolf. So first, we have Pretty Little Liars. It was on from 2010 to 2017. There's 7 seasons. Basically, the genres crime, drama, briefly supernatural. You got your main group of friends, which is Allison, Aria, Emily, Hannah, and Spencer. There's a lot of names in this show. You gotta get good at remembering names, at remembering faces and names. Allison, for the first handful of seasons, uh, you think that she's dead. Sorry, also there are gonna be spoilers in this, obviously. Um, but they think that she's dead. She does eventually end up coming back and she's not dead. So there's that. But basically, the whole show starts with Allison's disappearance. Um, and all of the girls are hanging out, drinking together. Um, it's like a little sleepover party that they're having. Super fun, super cute, super chill. Um, but then in the middle of the night while everyone else is sleeping, Allison goes missing. And everyone kind of assumes that she's murdered, but they don't find the body until significantly later. Um, and basically, the whole premise of the show is that the girls are getting texts from this phone number, and it's always signed A. So at first they're like, is this Allison? Like, what? Because a lot of the secrets that A is sending around with the girls, those are secrets that only Allison knew. So A would, almost like taunting them, would like send stuff basically saying like, "Oh, I know what you did. I know what happened here." And the girls are then getting scared because they're like, "I don't want to get in trouble. Yikes." And so then they keep it a secret from their parents and everyone, which is crazy. Um, yeah, and so they're like, "Oh my gosh, are you guys also getting messages from A?" And the other girls are like, "Yeah. Do you think it could be Allison? Huh? It might be. Yikes." Um, yeah. And then basically you end up finding out later on it wasn't Allison, but like as the show goes on, the girls keep adding secrets to their pile. So then A has more blackmail, has more ammunition on them. So then they do things to try and get out of A's way, which gives A even further ammunition. And it's crazy. It's basically like all of these girls were given shovels to dig their own holes, dig their own graves, I think, is the actual phrase. Um, and they go with it. They keep digging their own grave. So while the main villain is this so-called A, um, you do have like perceived villains. So who they're theorizing is A constantly changing. For some time it might be Spencer's older sister, and then it's, oh, is it this teacher? And it's just constantly changing, and then they end up finding out like immediately after that is like, oh, so they weren't A, they're just creepy. I have um I did set up a keto watch in this PowerPoint, because one thing I've noticed is that a lot of teen dramas have full grown adults dating teenagers, and I think that's weird. Literally, like Pretty Little Liars, Arya, who is like 15, 16, starts dating her English teacher who just graduated from college. So that means he's probably like 23, 24. And let me tell you, this show does not see anything wrong with this at all. Like all of the relationships that they kind of like that they want you to ship and root for, they're all, it's young girl, grown man. That's all that it is. Like, there is genuinely not a single man in this who has not acted like a pedo. And I think that's crazy. Horny rating? Because another theme I noticed was that these teen dramas get pretty horny. Which makes sense because teenagers are very hormonal and also horny. Um, yeah, it's a 2 out of 4 for horny. Like, it doesn't really ever get like hot and steamy. Like, they'll allude to it sometimes, but it's like, I don't know, like, it's fine. It's whatever. The show definitely focuses more on the plot, believe it or not, despite how absolute shit the plot is. It's also set in the fake town of Rosewood, Pennsylvania, a small town where everyone knows everyone. Also, this will be a theme in every single teen drama. The character web is very wide. It includes a lot of ton of different um characters. So, like I said, you gotta know names and faces. You gotta be good with it. Otherwise, you're gonna be lost the entire time. But it is primarily focused on the main group of girls, that main five. Um, so at least you have like some like anchor people that you're like, okay, well, I at least know that this one's Arya. Oh, well, I know that one's Hannah. So it makes it a little easier. I will also say that the storyline escalates so quickly. So, I mean, you're literally starting off with these girls in high school hanging out, drinking a little, having a little sleepover, and then boom, one of them is gone. Is either kidnapped or dead. So it's like, whoa, that's suspicious. And then it like kind of starts off like the secrets that A knows. It starts off pretty tame with like, I stole my sister's history paper from whenever she was taking this class and I won an award. Yikes! To like, oh, I kidnapped all of these girls and held them hostage in this secret bunker in which I decorated each and every room to look exactly like their rooms at home. Like, one for one comparison. And then I play little dollhouse with these girls in this bunker. That's like how quickly that's the escalation, my guy. It's crazy. It's like, oh, Hannah stole something to like I have a secret twin that I never knew about and is British? Weird. Like I said, like the major themes, that's Big Brother, my guy. Some Orwellian shit in here. Constant surveillance. And I literally don't understand how A does it. I would love to see someone's breakdown of A's finances because this person is dedicated to absolutely ruining the lives of these 4/5 girls. So they're like always being watched and they're like, can A see me right now? Oh no! And then they also just lie all the time. I mean, it is called Pretty Little Liars. Like, I guess it makes sense. But oh my gosh. They even lie about like tiny little things that it's like, you're not helping yourself, like at all. Was there any friendcest? Yes, but very minor. It was just one of the girl's ex-boyfriends ends up kind of hooking up with another one of the girls, but they end up breaking up so the original like girl and her ex-boyfriend can live a happily ever after. That's all it is. Is there gay? Yes. A lot actually, but it's only sapphic stuff. Like there's no gay men to be seen and nothing like it treats bisexuality like it's like, oh no, how could she like girls and guys? Oh man. And it's like such a novel idea. I mean it was the 2010s, so yeah, it was a little weird, but for the most part, I feel pretty good with how they portrayed queer people on this. My main criticism with the show is the number of storylines. There's so many. So many. And my biggest issue with it is the fact that they would start so many different storylines that would go absolutely nowhere. It's like something dramatic would happen and you would never go back to that storyline ever again. There's just like a ton of like cliffhangers that never get wrapped up. And it's like, okay, well, why was this person brought in? We never visit them in the story ever again. They're just it's stupid. You could have trimmed this out. I've explaining the show to other people. I have used the analogy of like the writers were truly throwing anything and everything at the wall trying to see what stuck. Anything and everything. Like this was I think there was like originally a little bit of a plan, especially since there were books, but it deviated from the books so quickly and so early in the series. And it just you can tell that there's just like no plan. You can tell that the writers are scrambling around for anything that they can get their hands on. It can genuinely be so confusing. Next we have Nancy Drew, who was from 2019 to 2023. Oh, also, um Pretty Little Liars had a brief like they tried to go supernatural with it a little bit And that did not work. And so they very much just abandoned that storyline. And I think that's kind of funny. Nancy Drew, back to it. 2019 to 2023. There's 4 seasons. Obviously, if it's Nancy Drew, there's going to be some crime. She's going to try and stop it. However, what I did not originally see coming was the amount of supernatural shit that's in this show. It's insane. Like, literally, after probably like episode 4, maybe, it is like only supernatural stuff. Only ghosts and demons and all these weird things, whatever. I don't know. So it's like, it really doesn't feel like Nancy Drew because there's not a lot of like actual crime solving. It's just like, we're gonna fight these monsters and we're gonna freaking win. The main group of friends, of course, you have Nancy Drew. Then you have Bess and Ace and Nate and George, which, despite the name, George is a girl. It's set in Horseshoe Bay, Maine. Now, mind you, Pretty Little Liars was set in Pennsylvania. You will see that a lot of these take place on the East Coast. Why? I do not know. I cannot answer that for you. But Horseshoe Bay is another small town where nothing happens and everyone knows everyone. Just like every other fucking show on here. Pedo Watch, 1. There's only one inappropriate relationship, and they depict that as like, okay, like this is not the relationship you should be rooting for, which I personally really appreciate. They I think they handle it the best out of pretty much all of these shows. Um so and it's like at the very beginning. That's it. And then the rest of it, it also helps that these guys, they're young adults, so they're not teenagers. So they're not in high school. So it's like they can technically date anyone of any age without it being that weird. So I guess that's good. The main antagonist, there's just like a ton of different like supernatural beings that you deal with, and like that's it. Every time one gets defeated, another one pops up. Hold on, I will be right back. I'm going to turn on a light. Back to the game. The character web is very narrow and focused, which I actually really appreciate. It keeps it keeps the series like focused and doesn't feel like a splattered mess. It feels a lot more organized. The storyline doesn't like escalate. It just shifts from being like human violent crime to supernatural things that shouldn't exist. Like that's so like it's not really like an escalation. It's just different. The major themes, obviously, got that mystery solving. It's Nancy Drew. There's a lot of like old magic in this. So it's not like, ooh, let me wave this wand. It's like, find these ingredients and perform like a ritual, and maybe it'll work. Uh, there is, in fact, a ton of Friendcest in this show. Like a ton. Like, there's so much. Because first, It's Nancy and Nate who are together. And then, fairly quickly, they break up. Nate and George get together, and they stay together for a while. They almost get married, but then they break up and never get back together, which I think is crazy. That's whatever. But then Ace and Nancy spend like the last entire season like yearning after each other. But there's like a spell on them where it's like they can't be together, otherwise Ace will die, which sounds so insane. Um, but yeah, it's it's interesting. There is in fact gay in this as well. Bess, you may have noticed how she is the only one in the friend group not to be involved in the friendcest. That is because she is a lesbian. And she has a few different girlfriends, and that's it. Not much to say about it. I just feel like there could have been more. Like, I don't know, I feel like they could have done something cool, but they didn't. It's whatever. Basically, I forgot to explain the plot of Nancy Drew. So basically, Nancy Drew um is set up in high school to be like, ooh, perfecto, like the best student, so popular, everyone loves her. She's gonna go to an Ivy League school, and then her mom dies, and she's like, I'm a dropout now. And then she gets a job at the local, it's like a crab shack. I don't know. It's just like a restaurant. That's all it is. Um, and so she's working there whenever one night this like mobster guy comes in with some of his business associates, and while they're eating, um his wife, who is outside standing by the car, gets murdered. And so then they're like trying to solve that, but then they end up realizing that like, oh my goodness, it wasn't a human who murdered her, it was this evil spirit. Wow, wow. I don't know. It was a weird change. Um, my main criticism with the show, the Cricket, what's your issue? Cricket's being weird. Um, the relationships change like really quickly and quite drastically to where it's like, oh, I'm so like head over heels in love with you. Oh, you want me to meet your parents? I can't do that. And then so I will just never talk to you ever again. I'm gonna fully ghost you. So like it's just like they change from like being like the most in love to never wanting to speak to each other again. Which I'm like, that's just it's so weird. Like why is it changing that vastly? It also like it shouldn't be called Nancy Drew. This is not Nancy Drew. This is just a different show. Like Nancy Drew they could have done something like interesting with it, with the solving crime, but they just made it like magic. Like it does not feel like Nancy Drew. It does not mirror any of the Nancy Drew books. It's just like it's not Nancy Drew. Next we have Vampire Diaries. It went from 2009 to 2017. There are 8 seasons. It's of course a drama, a romance, very supernatural if you couldn't tell by the name. There's the main group of friends that it primarily focuses on. There's Elena and Stefan. They're together. at the beginning of the show. And main character is Elena. Like she's the main character. Elena and Stefan, they're dating. Stefan is a vampire who has a vampire brother whose name is Damon. And then he's always like Stefan is like the good boy and Damon is like the bad boy. He's doing whatever the fuck he wants. And then you have Elena's best friend Bonnie, who ends up realizing that she's a witch. And then you have their friend Caroline, and she she is interesting. She starts off really unbearable, but then becomes like probably like the best character. Um and then you have Matt, who is Elena's ex-boyfriend, and it's all just kind of crazy. Like obviously there's going to be a lot of supernatural shit, a lot of vampires. That's it's going to happen. Let's just be realistic. Um yeah, so Bonnie's a witch. Caroline ends up becoming a vampire. Matt is very dedicated to staying a human. He's like, I ain't gonna do any of that vampire shit. Miss me with that vampire shit. Yeah. Main antagonist, Catherine, who looks exactly like Elena. They're doppelgangers. Um, and in the past, Stefan was actually in love with Catherine, as was Damon. Catherine was the one who turned both Stefan and Damon into vampires, actually. And so Stefan like hasn't really moved on from Catherine yet, and then finds Elena and is like, "Yo, she's just as hot and has a better personality. Yes, please." And then once Catherine is like semi defeated, like they just kind of move on from her. Then it's just like a bunch of supernatural shit. Like there's like the werewolves, there's the original vampires, there's other vampires that they're just gonna be fighting all the time. It's whatever. Um Also, another thing in the show, no one dies. Well, like everyone dies. All of them. They all die. But it's not permanent. Like you can't take them down. Not forever. There's also like a lot of other main characters in this show. So there's Alaric, who is possibly one of the hottest characters to ever exist. There's Jeremy, who is Elena's little brother. It's just, there's a lot of different people. And then, like, some people that originally get brought on as, like, side characters end up staying and they become, like, pretty significant characters in and of themselves. PETA Watch, I gave it a 1 out of 4 because, so, like, immortal characters are dating high schoolers, but, like, I just don't really know what you would consider PETA Watch here because considered, like, relatively to Stefan and Damon, like, in order to date an age appropriate person, at the very slightest, they would need to be like 90. So it's like, where is that cutoff? But also, they're pursuing a lot of minors. Like, Elena is in high school. So maybe you, a man who's been alive for like 200 years, maybe you shouldn't be going after a high schooler. Maybe you should Go for someone who's legal. Horny rating, 3 out of 4. Pretty horny. They're all making out with everyone, kind of. Like, so Elena and Matt used to date, and then Elena and Stefan get together. Caroline and Matt date, and then Caroline and what was his name? He looks like a Kyle, but he ends up getting turned into a werewolf, and him and Caroline get together for a long time, and I honestly think that they should have been in game, but whatever. And Bonnie and Jeremy, Elena's little brother, they get together for a while. And then Caroline and Alaric kind of date, but not really. Like Alaric is in love with Caroline, but Caroline is like, "Eh," but she's the mother of his children, so then she's like, yeah, I guess I'll marry you. That's whatever. So it's weird. Honestly, Caroline kind of gets passed around a lot. And like, we're gonna be sex positive. Good for you, girl. You got on the show. But also, she deserved some more stability. The show also takes place in Mystic Falls, Virginia. Once again, on the East Coast. It is, just like all the other ones, a small town where nothing really happens. And everyone knows each other. Crazy how that works. Character web, like I said, it's pretty wide, but it's really only focused on Elena, Stefan, and Damon. Those are really the only ones you need to know, to be honest. Um, so like it is pretty focused on them, but there's so many other like side storylines that are happening. The storyline has a pretty slow escalation. It's not until like the later seasons where it's like, oh, this actually has some stakes to it. Huh, stakes? Vampires. Am I right, guys? Am I right? It's just like, I don't know. It doesn't. I mean, it starts like, oh, this is life or death, and then it just kind of stays life or death, and that's it. The major themes, of course, you have vampires, a lot of romance shit, got a lot of magic in there. There's some princess in there, and like I said, it's mostly Caroline. She deserved more. Um, does it have gay? Yeah, kind of. It's quite literally the definition of bury your gays. Um, and they all die after being on the show for not that long, like a couple of episodes, and then they're dead. Like, it is quite literally just bury your gays. Like, there's two vampires who, two lady vampires who are like together, and then they die. And then there was this one other kid, and he was gay, but he dies pretty early to him being introduced. And I, for the life of me, cannot remember who the fourth queer character was. But I know when I was originally making this, I thought of it, but I cannot think of it anymore. My main criticism of the show, oh my god, do not watch the last two seasons, holy shit. The last two seasons are the worst. Wanna know why? You wanna know why? Because Elena, the main character, all of the other seasons, isn't there. She's fucking dead in a box. And they're like, she'll wake up eventually. And it's lame and everything stays lame and it's just like weird. And then there's like this school that they end up forming, and then Alaric is in charge of it. I don't know, man. It's weird. I'm not a fan. The last episode, quite literally the worst episode in the entire series, and that makes me so mad. I wanted to see Elena have her happy ending and like ride off into the sunset and like enjoy life. But like you don't get that because like as soon as she wakes up from her semi-death, she it like fast forwards like through her life and is like, oh, now she's old and she passes on and she's ready to pass on. Or am I thinking of something else? Actually, no, now I remember. She's like writing stuff at a grave. She's like writing in her notebook and she's like, well, time to go to work. I'm a nurse. I don't know. It was weird and it wasn't good and it wasn't satisfying. And I don't like it. Gossip Girl. More like go piss, girl. Am I right, guys? 2007 to 2012. You got 6 seasons of it. It's a drama. It's all about rich people. It really is genuinely like just all about rich people. The main group of friends, you got Dan, Serena, Blair, Chuck, Nate, and occasionally Dan's little sister, Ginny. I almost forgot her name. Oh, and you also have Dan and Jenny's dad, and then Serena's mom, and also Serena's little brother, who's gay. Yo. Um, it takes place on the Upper East Side of New York, where all the rich people are. Basically, the show is just—it's literally just about rich people. That is all that it is. It's just about rich people. That's it. And it's kind of annoying, especially whenever you yourself kind of hate rich people. Uh, Main antagonist, Gossip Girl is the name of the show. Gossip Girl is kind of like A, but far less serious and less sinister. A isn't trying to like actively like murder people. Or Gossip Girl isn't trying to actively murder people, but A is. Gossip Girl is just like, I saw these guys kissing in the hallway. Nah. About random fucking high school students. And everyone knows these random high school students just because they're rich. Like everyone knows all of these people just because they're rich. And it's like, whoa, you know who that is? That's Blair Waldorf. Her mom is in charge of Waldorf Designs. Like, come on, get real. No one's gonna fucking know that shit. No one. Keto Watch has a 2 out of 4. Wanna know why? Because Nate ends up having relations with an older woman, like whenever he's like 17, I'm pretty sure. Um, then also later in the series has relations with a girl who's like 14 whenever he's like 19. And just the fact that they put both of those on Nate, that's crazy. That's insane. Oh, also, another antagonist of the show is very ambiguous. So they'll set up like these situations and then it's kind of up to the audience to kind of decide who's more in the wrong. So if like, there's a fight between like Serena and Blair, they don't necessarily make it any one person's fuck up. It's like everyone's fucked up and it all just builds on each other. So I do like that aspect of like who's in the wrong. You got to think about it because they're not really gonna they don't really build up like any one character to be the villain, except they do originally build Chuck to be the villain, but he actually ends up being the best character in the entire series. Fight me. I would say that out of all the shows, this is probably the horniest show. They just, they never stop fucking. They do not stop ever. Character web. It's focused and narrow. Literally, all the people on the page before, that's really all you need to know. Because all the drama pretty much stays in between them. And why everyone all stays friends with each other, I do not know. Because if some of the people, if any of my friends did like half of the shit that they did, I would be like, I'm never gonna speak to you again. Oh, we're done. And the storyline, it escalates a little bit, but not, like, I mean, it's truly just drama and gossip. It's just like it's plain old gossip. There's no like killer, there's no monsters, there's no life or death situation. Major themes: elitism, wealth, popularity, got another like big brother kind of thing. Like they're always being watched by Gossip Girl and they need to make sure that like, oh, Gossip Girl doesn't put this on her blog, otherwise everyone's gonna hate me. Oh no. Basically, like the storyline of this is you have Dan, who honestly his dad is still pretty wealthy, but he's seen as like the poor kid at his school because he goes to like this rich school where all of these rich ass people are, and then he tries he he tries to like fit in with them, and then him and Serena get together, and then yeah, there's not really any like solid plot throughout the thing. It's a lot of little plots. Is there gay? You may be wondering. Yes. Yes, there is. But there's only like a few gay men. I remember who the fourth gay person was on Vampire Diaries. It was Caroline's dad, which oddly enough, both Caroline and Blair have dads that were once married to women but got a divorce whenever they realized that they were gay. So, there you go. And honestly, Caroline's dad dies in a lot of pain. And it's not a happy death. um, yeah, Gossip Girl's got a few gay men. Like I said, Serena's little brother's gay. And he's pretty slay, I guess. They don't ever really, like, do anything with it. And there's no queer women. So, boo. Give me more gay women. Also Major Princess, Tons of Princess. And let me draw it out for you because originally Blair and Nate were together, but Nate always had a thing for Serena, and him and Serena hooked up once, and then Serena kind of ran away, but ended up coming back like a year later. And so Blair and Nate were still together, but Blair ends up finding out about Nate and Serena, and she's like, Nate, you and I, done. Not happening anymore. And Nate's like, oh man. And then Dan finds Serena, and they have a fling on and off throughout like the entire show. And then in Her Hurt, Blair turns to Chuck, and Chuck and Blair have an on and again, off again thing for a while. Um, and also I think Dan gets with Blair for a few times. And Jenny dates, or she kisses Nate. Oh, and then Dan has a friend from his old school. I think, oh god, I can't remember her name. But she ends up dating, she is Dan's ex girlfriend. She ends up dating Nate a couple of times. And then her and Dan also try to have a little hit reconnection, but that doesn't really work. It's just like the same people getting with the same people, just in different combinations. My main criticism of this is that, oh my god, some of the main characters are just god awful. Because they never learn. When will you learn that your actions have consequences? They never learn. Want to know why? Because Serena's mom will throw money at literally any issue to make it disappear. And honestly, that's how a lot of them deal with their issues. Instead of actually facing the consequences that they deserve to face, their parents will throw money at it and make the problem go away. And that's all there is to it. And literally Serena, oh my god, she's the worst character. Oh, she's just the worst. Oh, she makes me so mad. And her mom, it's somehow even worse than this. Wow. How is her mom even worse? I do not know. Now we're on to the OC. 4 seasons, from '03 to '07. Once again, this is another one that is about basically a ton of rich people, but this one is a lot more, honestly, I would say a lot more realistic than Gossip Girl. Um, so basically, you have Ryan. Ryan and his brother try to steal a car, so Ryan gets put in juvie real quick, and then whenever Ryan gets out, he goes to his mom's place, but his mom basically throws him out because her boyfriend was abusing Ryan, because make sense. And so then Ryan is like, well, shit, I don't have anywhere to go. So he calls the lawyer that was allotted to him via law. He calls the lawyer, who's Sandy, played by Peter Gallagher. Um, and Sandy takes him home to his house with Kirsten, his wife, and Seth, his son. And basically, like, at first, Kirsten is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're not having a criminal in this house. Because it's like a really big, really nice house. They're kind of rich, whatever. But Ryan and Seth end up like becoming close friends. And eventually, Sandy and Kirsten, especially Kirsten, she ends up like accepting Ryan into the family. And they both end up kind of adopting him, becoming his guardians. And so yeah, it's like that's really cute. Love that. And the next door neighbor to Sandy and Kirsten is Marissa, who's this cute little girl, and her family is also very rich, except they're not because her dad is a fraud. He committed fraud, and so they're actually just absolutely broke. And they don't know that until like a few episodes in. So then you have Marissa, who her and Ryan have an on again, off again thing for the longest time. And honestly, it's just one of those where it's like, just make a decision, please. Then you also have Summer, who's Marissa's best friend. Seth has been in love with Summer since he was like in 3rd grade or whatever, maybe 5th grade. But he's been in love with her like for forever. And Summer is like really cool and popular. Seth is basically a nobody at school. But somehow they end up getting together and they actually are together for a majority of the show. And they're honestly such a cute couple. I love them. The main antagonist, it's kind of the same setup as Gossip Girl, where it's like you have like the plot, you have like the issue at hand, and both people are in the wrong. So it's kind of up to the audience to make the decision of like, oh well, who do I agree with? Who am I siding with? It's very similar to that. Um, Cardone. Keto Watch, you get a 2 out of 4, and that is because Luke, who is Marissa's ex-boyfriend, mind you, they're the same age, Marissa's mother sleeps with Luke. So this mother is fucking her daughter's ex-boyfriend, who is still in high school. That's insane. Holy shit. That should not be happening. Which I'm sure everyone already knows, but still. And there's some questionable relationships where I'm like, how old are you? And they don't really say, but it's also like, why are you trying to date a high schooler? Mm. It's set in Newport, California, where everyone knows everyone, of course, because it's, well, I wouldn't say a small town. It's in Orange County, which is the name of the show, the OC, Orange County. It's where tons of rich people live. It's whatever. I say it's pretty horny. You know, they're always trying to get it on. Um, Best part of the show, best scene is the what you say moment. I love it, and it is a cinematic masterpiece. Character web, fairly narrow and focused. It's primarily focused on Ryan, because he is from not a good place. Like, he's from, like, the wrong side of the tracks, basically. And then he gets introduced to, like, all these rich people, and he's like, what the fuck? And he's different than the other girls. So a lot of people like him for that. Um, Storyline doesn't really have, like, a strong escalation. Like, I don't know, it doesn't ever really get that crazy. It's a lot of, like, fighting and punching. Ryan will punch anything that moves. Ryan will not stop punching things. Of course, the major themes got the elitism, classism, but it does really focus on found family, which I love. So sweet. And how, like, Sandy and Kirsten will bring basically, like, anyone into their family. And I love that. It's precious. Luckily in this one, no friendcest. There's always new characters that are brought in for if they want to make like a new love triangle, they'll just bring in a side character rather than really mix the main group. But to be fair, there's only really 4 in the main group, so there's only so many combinations you can make with that. Um, there's not much gay. Marissa is in a queer relationship for few episodes, but that doesn't last long. Um, yep, that's quite literally it. Main criticism. Marissa, oh my god, I fucking hate her. She is the Serena Vanderwoodson of the OC. She never learns her lesson. She basically throws a fit anytime she doesn't get her way. Um, she just does what she wants and doesn't ever really consider anyone else's feelings. And she never fucking learns. Oh my god. Ugh. And then of course you have the what you say scene. I highly recommend that you look it up because holy shit, it is one of the craziest scenes I have ever watched. Riverdale, 2017 to 2023, 7 seasons. It's got crime, it's got drama, it's supernatural kind of, I think. Honestly I didn't get super far into it. And like I said, I don't believe that anyone has ever fully finished this. I refuse to believe. Main group of friends. Got all the classics from the Archie comics. Archie, Betty, Jughead, Veronica, Cheryl. It's whatever. Basically, Veronica, her dad goes to jail. She's originally like from New York. Her family was like so rich and stuff, but her dad goes to jail because he also did fraud. As you can see, there's a lot of like connecting points between all of these shows. So they go to live um back in Riverdale. So Veronica's kind of like the new kid in town. Um Cheryl is she's the head bitch in charge. Her family kind of runs the town. And you got Archie, who plays guitar and plays football, I guess. Everyone's like, oh my god, he's so hot. And it's like, that's a man. That's just a white man. Then you got Betty, who is like the girl next door. But then she's actually like kind of crazy. And the rest of her family is also kind of crazy. And you got Jughead, who is like also from like the wrong side of the tracks and part eventually becomes part of this gang. Um and he's he's kind of the one who's like, I'm not like other girls. Uh Favorite quote from Archie, you will never know the epic highs and lows of high school football. Favorite quote from Jughead, I'm weird. I like being weird. Have you ever seen me without this hat? That's weird. So those are pretty iconic. Key to watch, you got a 2 out of 4. They literally start off with the fact that Archie is banging one of his teachers. And there's not much that is. They don't really. They don't. The show doesn't really put it in the point of view of like, oh, this is bad. They're just like, hey, this happened. And that's it. Um, and then honestly, shit just gets crazy. It's set in Riverdale, New York. Once again, East Coast. This show is incredibly horny. It's horny all the time. Awooga the way it be horny. Um, the main antagonist, there's not any one main antagonist. There's like truly so many that it's like within the first 5 episodes, there's already like 10 antagonists that you're like, oh, I hate this person. Oh, I hate this person. Oh, I hate this person. It's weird. Character web, wide and unfocused. It will, in fact, jump around between like main characters and side characters and make little distinction between the two. Um, Major themes. I don't think I updated the major themes for Riverdale. I think that is from whenever I was copy and pasting the slide from Pretty Little Liars. Anyways, I would say the major themes are like crime solving and being in high school and you want a bone. I'd say those are the major themes. Storyline, oh my god, that shit ramps up exponentially. There's definite incest because first Betty has a crush on Archie. Archie's like, no, thank you. And then Veronica is like, ooh, hey, Archiekins. And then Betty and Jughead are like, Kishi, Kishi. And just everyone will get within everyone. It's whatever. Uh, I will say, there's plenty of gay to go around in this one. Most diverse queer stories out of all of these shows. You have gay men, gay women, bisexual women. You got the lot. Which now that I say that, that is like such little representation. But honestly, the bar's in hell for these shows. Main criticism is the fact that I still, to this day, don't know if the actors actually think that it's like a good show or if they're like playing into it like it's a bit. They're like, oh yeah, like I know the show is bad and crazy, but it's fun. Or if they're like, this is actually like a really important show in regards to culture. Like this is a cultural reset. I cannot tell. I feel like usually you can tell. I have no clue still if they think that what they made was is good. I, for the love of God, hope not. Here are some of the cross sections. Here are some of the connections I made. Okay, with Vampire Diaries and Pretty Little Liars, they shared a couple of directors for a couple of seasons, or not seasons, but episodes. Writers, directors, you have Joshua Butler, Chris Grismer. And then for writers, you have Brian M. Holdman and Michael J. Thinkmani, I think. And then over to the right, those are a bunch, well, I guess not a bunch, but these are side characters, or actors that appear in both shows. Claire Holt is one of the girls that Emily dates for a little bit. She like introduces Emily to a bunch of other lesbians. She's like in like a lesbian club or whatever. Um, and then in Vampire Diaries, she is one of the original vampires. She's the only sister. Kind of iconic. And then you have Bianca Lawson. She plays Maya in Pretty Little Liars, who is Emily's first girlfriend and like first love. Um, and then in Vampire Diaries, she plays the witch that was alive whenever Catherine was alive. So she's like kind of Bonnie's ancestor. Tori DeVito, she plays Spencer's older sister in Pretty Little Liars, but in the Vampire Diaries, she plays a doctor who briefly dates, I think briefly dates Alaric. Um, yeah, like that's it. She was only on there for like 2 episodes, maybe. Um, John Ferris, he played Detective Holbrook in Pretty Little Liars. Um, but played. This is gonna sound so confusing. So hold on. Right. So Elena's little brother, Jeremy, he has a little girlfriend named Anna, who is also a vampire. And then Anna, like Sean Ferris, he plays like her little henchman. Um, and yeah, that's quite literally like that's it. He was only on a couple of episodes. The OC and Pretty Little Liars. Okay, here we go. There is the co-producer of Lisa Nealon Cochran in both of those shows, and then Ashley Benson, who plays Hannah, one of the main characters on Pretty Little Liars. She is in the OC very briefly. She is one of the friends of Marissa's little sister, if that makes sense. And Janelle Parrish, who plays Mona in Pretty Little Liars. She is also very briefly in the OC. Lucy Hale, who plays Aria, also in the OC. She plays Marissa's little sister's friend, who she has like a bigger role than Ashley Benson did, who is like, I don't know, she had like some kind of problem, either like she was trying to get a guy or she thought she was pregnant or whatever, or I don't fucking know. Vampire Diaries in the OC. Here's their connection. Cat Graham. That's it. Cat Graham played Bonnie, the magical witch in Vampire Diaries. In the OC, she was in one episode for like 30 seconds. And there was this side character who was having either like a breakdown or she was overdosing on something. Like something was going wrong with her, but she locked herself in a room. And then Ryan shows up and Graham's character is like runs up to him and she's like, "Please, you're the only person that she'll let in, and she's locked the door, and you need to help her." And that is the only time that she's in that show. Gossip Girl in the OC. On the right, you got Willa Holland. She plays a pretty significant side character in both shows. Um, she plays Marissa's little sister, Caitlin, in the OC. But in Gossip Girl, she plays Agnes, who is the former business partner of Dan's little sister, Jenny. Because Jenny is like a really good fashion designer and stylist, and Agnes is a model, and then they come together and make their own little fashion brand, and there's drama that will ensue, and all that jazz. Tate Donovan, who plays Marissa's dad in the OC, directs a couple of Gossip Girl episodes, but also directs one episode of the OC. So he's not on the OC a ton, but I would say he's on it a decent amount. Other shared directors: Norman Buckley. He directed in Pretty Little Liars, Gossip Girl, and the OC. Michael Grossman directed in Pretty Little Liars and the OC. Patrick R. Norris directed in The Vampire Diaries, Gossip Girl, and the OC. And then you have Elizabeth Allen Rosenbaum, who directed in The Vampire Diaries and Gossip Girl. Other shared writers: you have Melinda Sue, who wrote in The Vampire Diaries and Nancy Drew. You have Josh Schwartz, who wrote in Gossip Girl, The OC, and Nancy Drew. And then you have Stephanie Savage, who wrote in Gossip Girl, The OC, and Nancy Drew. So a lot of Nancy Drew in this one. The OC and Twilight. If I had a nickel for every time an actor was in both the OC and the Twilight series, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. So Nikki Reed plays I want to say Rose, maybe? I don't remember her name. I was never a huge fan of Twilight. But she's basically the one, um, she's the one vampire sister who originally really hates Bella. And then in the OC, she is the cousin of a kid who died. He was really close to Marissa. The kid died, and then his cousin comes to like take care of all the stuff he left behind, and then her and Ryan get together and all that jazz. And then you have Jackson Rathbone, who plays the Confederate soldier vampire. And for like a couple of episodes plays the boyfriend of Marissa's little sister, Caitlin. And he like followed her home to the OC to make sure that she was okay or something. I don't know. This man, this man is a menace to society. Look at those eyes. He's seen the world burn firsthand, and he wants to watch it again and again and again. There's no life behind those eyes. This man was the executive producer of Pretty Little Liars, The Vampire Diaries, and Gossip Girl. Arguably the three biggest shows out of all of them. Uh, how can one man do so much evil? How? I'll never forgive him for what he did. And you may think, Lydia, do you hate these shows? No, I love these shows. But I love them because they're terrible. It's like when you're in love with someone that you know you shouldn't be because they're a shitty person. That's the way I'm in love with these shows. And this man executively produced three of them. He should not be allowed back in society. He should be imprisoned, like Rapunzel. Other things that I noticed. On the right, you have the top one is Peter Gallagher. The bottom one is Max Greenfield. Peter Gallagher plays Max Greenfield's dad in New Girl. So Max Greenfield plays Schmidt. Peter Gallagher plays Schmidt's estranged father in New Girl. But in the OC, Peter Gallagher, who plays Sandy, there's like a flashback sequence, and in that flashback sequence, Max Greenfield plays a younger version of Sandy. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, they're so connected. It's the eyebrows and the fact that they're both Jewish. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Other things that I noticed. Michael Schur plays a guy who offers Summer an internship, like her dream internship in the OC. But he also plays Dwight's cousin Mose in The Office. Fun fact. He was also a producer on The Office and Parks and Rec and SNL and The Good Place. So he's had a lot of hits. He was also a writer on SNL, I believe. But yeah, he was on the OC for like 2 episodes briefly. Basically walks up to Summer and he's like, "What's up? You want this internship? It's your dream internship." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, okay." But here's the thing, Michael Schur married to JJ Philbin. And you might be like, that last name rings a bell. Yeah, it's because it's Regis Philbin's daughter. Regis Philbin, his daughter, who also worked as a producer and writer on the OC. They're connected via OC. On the OC, Bella Thorne plays a young Taylor, who is a character in like the last couple of seasons. And then Kevin Sorbo, who plays Ryan's estranged father on the OC. He he's on one episode of Psych in which he plays a bounty hunter. And that's all I have to say about that. And I've also noticed that the main love interest, she usually dies like right before the last couple of seasons. Like dead ass. It's kind of crazy how often it happens. It's like a major character, they just kill them off, and it's usually because the actresses want to go and do some other movies or TV shows or all that stuff. Now, recently I've been watching Teen Wolf, which honestly, out of all of these, it's the best. It has 6 seasons and a movie, community reference. It, I'd say, I mean, it's about werewolves, but there's crime, there's drama, it's supernatural. Luckily, 0 out of 4 pedo watch! No pedos in this bitch, as far as I've seen. Like I said, it's as far as I've seen. I haven't finished this yet, so I will keep you updated. But thus far, no pedos. And I think that's awesome. Horny rating? 2 out of 4. There's a couple of people who are like really horny. Like Lydia, which is unfortunate that one of the very few times my name is used in like a show or a movie, it's someone who I kind of can't stand. It's set in Beacon Hills, California. So Teen Wolf and the OC are the only ones that take place on the West Coast. All the other ones are on the East Coast. And you know what's kind of sad? No Midwest love. Like, where's my Midwest love? Show some love to us Midwesterners. Give us a show. The fuck? Why we gotta be left out? Anyways, Beacon Hills is a small town where nothing really happens and everyone knows each other. Like, literally, that's how all of these shows are. The main characters is you have Scott, who's like the main character, and then you have Styles, who's played by Dylan O'Brien. Um, and then Allison, who's the main love interest in seasons 1 through 3. Spoiler alert, she's not in any of the seasons after season 3. Then there's Lydia and Jackson, who's only in seasons 1 and 2. And then you have Derek, who is, he kind of is like, he's like Scott's vampire, not vampire, wolf mentor, kind of. Except that Scott ends up being like way better than him at everything. So you win some, you lose some. Main antagonist. It starts off with werewolf hunters, which, funnily enough, Allison and her family end up being werewolf hunters. Scott and Allison have a big romance, so it's like a little bit of Romeo and Juliet. And then after the hunters, it's like a bunch of different various supernatural beings. So I will say the plot, Scott and Styles are walking through the woods looking for a body because Styles' dad is the sheriff. So he'll like listen in on the conversations and then he's like, "Ooh, I want to go explore that." And then Scott ends up getting bit by a werewolf, so he then becomes a werewolf. Um, Allison, this new girl who Scott has a crush on, her dad and the rest of her family end up being werewolf hunters. She doesn't know until a little bit later. Lydia, Allison's best friend, she ends up being a banshee, apparently. You end up finding out. But she's not really like a big thing until I say probably season 3. Jackson is he's kind of a douche. Um yeah, he kind of sucks, but then he is like, he really wants to be a werewolf because Scott is like so strong now and has like all these superhuman skills and like is now co-captain of the lacrosse team and he can hear things super well. And then there's, yeah, you got Derek who just kind of shows up and is like, hey yo, let me teach you how to be a wolf. And then a bunch of other werewolves show up, and then there's a lot of fighting, and yada yada yada. Oh, and also Derek's uncle, Peter, he comes in there, and he's like, I want to be the alpha! Rah! I'm the one who turned Scott! And then he dies, but he ends up coming back, because no one ever dies. The character web, fairly narrow and primarily focused on the main group. Like I said, it's majority focus on Scott. I will say in the later seasons, you do get more of a focus on some of the other characters like Styles and Lydia and a little bit of Allison. Um, I would say the storyline stays pretty steady considering that it starts chaotic and then it just stays chaotic. So there's not really like a ramp up for it because it already starts on such a high level. Major themes: werewolves, high school romance, and then best friends, the power of friendship. And yeah, you got some princess in there, because Styles is in love with Lydia, but Lydia, for a while, is dating Jackson, but then Scott is, like, in love with Allison, and then there's another character, his name is Isaac, and him and Allison end up becoming a thing, and it's a lot. I don't know. Like it's not like a ton because I feel like for the most part people pretty much stay in their lane, but I mean more than I would be used to. Is there gay? Yeah, there's some. It's mostly it's mostly gay men. Um so yeah, could definitely use some more gay women. But hey, at least the gay people aren't constantly being killed off. That's a bright side. My main criticism, all of the men in the show, hot. But there's only like a couple of hot women. There's like not a lot of women characters, so I think it could use more women, and I would also appreciate if they were very pretty. And that is what I want. And mind you, I still have a few seasons left of this show, so who knows? Maybe more hot women come into play. One can only hope. Um, Please give me more show recommendations like these. I I don't know what they do to me, but they make my brain go burr, and I think it's probably an issue, but I will not stop. I'm unstoppable. I'm inscrutable. Also, please do not recommend Glee or The Secret Life of the American Teenager or Gilmore Girls. I will never watch any of. Actually, I've seen Glee. I never finished it, but I saw a lot of it. I'm not gonna rewatch it, and I'm not gonna watch the other two shows. I'm just not. It's not something that's gonna happen. So please do not recommend that show. But if you have another show, I'd gladly give it a try. Anyways, thank you for coming to my TED Talk about teen dramas. I had a blast, and I am also very thirsty now from talking for an hour and a half. Thank you.